So I'm Jay Johnstone. I'm an illustrator. I specialise primarily in the works of Tolkien and Tolkien's legendarium, and I've worked on Tolkien's world for about 20-25 years. I was basically doing it at home by myself, just exploring Tolkien and his works, and eventually I had an exhibition in 2013. I was invited by the Tolkien Society to go and exhibit at Loughborough for The Return of the Ring. Wasn't sure I wanted to go, thought it was full of dusty old librarians and not my type of scene. But my wife convinced me to actually attend, and I had an absolutely fantastic time. I met so many wonderful people. The Tolkien Society was so welcoming, and the paintings that I took along, they believed touched something deep within Tolkien's world that most people hadn't considered. My attitude towards it was, if Tolkien's world was real, how would illustrators of the Middle Ages actually illustrated his works? So I was much more interested in the ideology and the theology behind the characters, their personalities, and how they interacted with their world and how they would have been perceived in later ages and how they would have been then illustrated. So I took that aspect of it, and it was very well received. I was lucky enough then to be invited to attend various other conventions and exhibitions. The biggest one I went to was in Los Angeles, so I went for the last Hobbit film when it was at the Oscars. I had an exhibition of some work there, and since then I've travelled around Holland. I've got exhibitions in Germany, in Switzerland, Athens, Italy. So I've basically travelled around the world just talking about my ideas and my thoughts behind Tolkien and his world. So my favourite mediums that I like to work in primarily are very, very traditional. So I start with vellum. Usually goat skin is my favourite to work with. I work with eggshell paints traditionally made. There's a guy in Texas who makes them, who I get them from him, and I also work with gouache. I work with a lot of gold, 24 karat gold leaf for the highlights and for the embossing. I was approached in 2024 about the Siege Perilous game. Games were not something I'd been too involved with prior, and to take all the learnings that I had from working on Tolkien for many years and then bringing them to this Arthurian legend seemed a big step for me. But the belief of the people who were organising the game that this should be done in a very traditional method and work with traditional materials to reinforce the honesty and the truth of the actual story was something that really excited me. So to actually get involved with it, to me, seemed a no-brainer. It was such an exciting thing to do. Working on this project has been such fun, but what I've really enjoyed is going back to those very traditional medieval materials. So primarily we're working with like vellum, but the colours we use on those, there's a guy called Lucas in Texas who's actually sent me a load of shells, and those are handmade colours made to medieval recipes. Great to work with, really exciting. I also work with gouache, calligraphy gouache primarily, because the strong opaqueness of the colours comes across really well. I work in medieval inks. All the line work is done with a thing called walnut ink made from walnut seeds, which are ground down and made into this actually beautiful sepia warm brown colour, which is used primarily in all the line work. All of the vellum, all the embossing is done with a material called bole, which is it's a red clay that gives like a nice rounded embossed effect, and then over that goes 24 karat gold leaf, which then absolutely shines and shimmers when it goes over. So just very traditional materials, treating it from like a much more historic way of actually producing the artwork. You can't get that with digital. You can't get it with digital art. So every illustration within this game is done by hand. We did a lot of research into the characters, and I was lucky enough to be sent a good descriptive brief of each individual character from the Arthur's Law. So each of the illustrations within themselves not only try to illustrate the character, and I've tried to be true and honest to what they wore, their sigils, what their shields were, what their armour was, and then within the back of each character illustration is a little hint towards the history or the story behind that character and how they, or what they did within the Arthurian legend. So that was quite nice. So each illustration itself actually tells a story. The ones that I had most fun with, I think, were probably the what you call the NPCs, the retainers, the cartiers, the blacksmiths. They were quite good fun to actually do as well. As for the time spent on this project, I've been working on it now for about 15 months. Each one of the individual character illustrations takes around 5 hours to do, and there are 250 of them, so you can imagine the amount of time spent on that. But then there's also the subsequent artwork. The map itself is taken forever, it feels like. Such an exciting thing to work on, and we're trying so hard to make sure it's authentic and honest and true to the actual story. A really cool part of this, because there's 250 illustrations, the game designers have decided to possibly include in some of the top tier games actual illustrations, which I think is going to be very cool, very collectible. The art really complements the game mechanic. It's unique and it's intriguing, and I'm hoping when people play this game they become immersed within the story, inhabit the game itself. That'll be the biggest joy out of this for me, I think.